This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, are we set on the AV? Set on the connection? Are we ready to go? Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order, but before we conduct a roll call, I have a couple of announcements. One, we have 2 new elected officials in our midst. The new delegate from the 28th District of Virginia, Tara Durant.
Welcome.
Congratulations, Matt. Matt Rowe, and the fact that she's interested in transportation is a good sign. Matt Rowe was elected to the school board in Fredericksburg. Unfortunately, he's not here tonight, but congratulations to him also. Now, on the downer side, the staff director whipped on us at the last minute email that said, I'm out of here. So we're going to miss her. I've only had the pleasure of working with her for a few months, some of you for a lot longer than that, but you got a problem. So I hope your new destination pays you lots of money, less work, and it's a good deal all around.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started.
Well, all of the above. I just want to say publicly, we thank Stacey for the several years of hard work here. Did an amazing job. And I can honestly say, in her particular case, above and beyond the call of duty, she's over communicated with the public and over worked on her projects. So we do thank her. From now on, if you'll just channel all your communication to me, we will have a staff meeting in the coming week and we'll shuffle a couple of things around. But for the time being, please channel all your communications to me. We do have an ad out soliciting applications for Stacey's job, which is vacant. And we've already received the first 3 applications. So we anticipate that we'll fill the position very quickly. And so it shouldn't make a major disruption. It's just, if you give us just a couple of weeks, we should be able to fill that position. And also we have another staff member leaving us soon. And that's Mr. May earlier, also done an amazing job, I'll say publicly. Handled lots of the difficult stuff behind the scenes and sometimes in the committees. Our staff has to deal with good politicians and bad ones, and members of the public are sometimes quite aggressive. So Ed's done a sterling job of dealing with that and dealing with a lot of our financial management behind the scenes. So we just thank him as well, and he'll also soon be leaving us, but we are working on all of these things.
Is there something about Vampo you're not telling us? All these people are bailing out?
Must be that deodorant wearing.
Okay. Well, if you would, please call the roll.
From the city of Fredericksburg, Dave McLaughlin.
Here.
Joshua Brock.
Present.
John Castellan.
Here.
Matthew Rowe. Patricia Farnacion. From Spotsylvania County, Neil Holleran.
Neil's here, everybody. Evening.
Yeah. Our newest member, welcome, Micah Cunningham.
Here.
From Caroline County, Ken Pogue. Michael Hoyt. Justin Chenault. From Stafford County, Dave Swan.
Here.
Glenn Goldsmith. Tara Durant. Present. Hank Sharpenberg.
Here.
From King George County, Jaron Hayes. At-large members, Larry Rose. Rupert Farley.
Sure.
Dustin Savage. Rodney Thomas.
Here.
Tamara Banks.
Here.
Jane Leeds.
Here.
And that concludes roll call and we have a quorum prepared.
Great. Okay, next item of business, the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay, can I have a motion? I'm sorry? Approval. Okay, motion to approve, second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, agenda is approved unanimously. Okay.
Just for the minutes, folks, when you say I second or I, whatever, just say your name. Because the poor person taking the minutes aren't always
Yeah.
distinguished with masks and everything else going on, who exactly said that. So just say I'm Tara Durant.
We also have a
Dave.
description that's online, so that would really help her.
Oh,
But
yeah.
when you say anything, say this is Stacy, and then go ahead and say what you're.
Thanks. It just helps us with the reporting.
Okay, hopefully everybody's had a chance to take a look at the meeting, minutes from the last meeting. Any changes, additions, or deletions to the minutes? If not, okay.
And your name, sir?
Rupert.
Thank you.
Dave Klein, second.
Some math man have seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, meeting minutes are approved. Okay, old business. First thing I'll cover are the things that we had to go through pretty quickly last time. And then Josh is going to talk about some organizational structure things. There are some things I think we should vote on and formalize within what CTAC does. There's some other things that I intend to go ahead and do in order to get more people engaged, to divide up the work and help us focus. So first thing is the mission statement. We don't really have a mission statement in the bylaws, and you'll notice this is my proposed mission statement that we advocate. And I'm very passionate about the word advocate because I want us as a advisory committee to get out there and sell what we think is the right thing to the elected bodies and to the public. We can provide assistance in having moved this forward. Now you'll see the listing of items there is deliberate. One is, the first item is reduce traffic congestion, followed by improving access to mass transit, safety into motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians in the Faneuil region. Now, that's not to place one below another, but I think it reflects the priority of effort. If we get everybody fully engaged and get people to provide the work, then it will be transparent that that prioritization, which you'll see on the following slide, is going to be almost simultaneous. But I'm a kind of a realist, and when we were talking about the roles of subcommittee chairs, I got an email from somebody that said, please don't pick me. And that's not my intent. My intent is to call for volunteers because I see this as being a commitment of time. I'd like to get people who have not been able to serve or be engaged. And to the degree you feel comfortable, then I'd like you to step forward so we can take our talents and apply them and focus them on these general things in the mission statement. Any comments about the mission statement? I'm going to add.
Mr. Chairman, this is Jane Leeds.
Jane.
Yeah, okay.
May I chime in?
Absolutely.
Yes. Have you all seen the FAMPO and George Washington Regional PO mission statements? They're quite complete. That would not be, I think, a problem in capitalizing on what they've already written and adopt it as part of ours and tweak it to fit our mission.
How would you revise this? And the reason I ask that is because CTAC is a somewhat different animal. We have a little bit of liberty in that we are not elected officials. We didn't have to run membership on the advisory council was a selection. And you have the ability, as we talked about at the very first meeting that I was able to attend, to approach things on a regional basis. and for us to step out of the lane of the elected officials and give our 2 cents on what we think is important and help move that process forward. So that's why this is a little bit out of that lane. I'm not opposed to modifying it, but I'm curious as to what you would recommend in its place. Over.
What caught my attention was that it appeared that the first two items that you have on the list are more like objectives rather than goals. The goal is to improve mobility for people. I feel like.
Are you referring to the follow-on slide or this one?
No, I'm talking about, instead of saying mitigating traffic congestion, what's the point of mitigating traffic congestion? The point of mitigating traffic congestion is to improve the mobility of people. So why pick on one particular objective? Why not state the goal?
The reason, well, and again, I'm not wedded to this in particular, but the reason I picked mitigate traffic congestion is it appears to be the single most burr under everybody's saddle. And for those I asked questions just a minute ago, what caused gridlock on 95 northbound last weekend? And look, people are frustrated in terms of being able to move from point A to point B on a good time or in a catastrophic situation anywhere. So that's why I put that first.
Yeah, well, you're sort of limiting yourself to that one aspect, whereas if you state your goal, and you're not limited just to focusing on traffic congestion. It's possible to move freight people freely with the roads totally congested. We should go with that. We shouldn't just be focusing on congestion.
Well, how would you change the word?
I would say advocate for solutions that improve mobility for people in freight.
In freight?
Great, yeah. Good.
All right, so I mean, the freight also encompasses traffic, so I don't think that's a problem.
Improve mobility, then just assume that we're talking about both passengers and freight.
Okay, so
In this case, we wouldn't need to say improving the access to mass transit because it's part of the same package.
yeah, although you're correct, although we may be allowing ourselves to lump all sorts of stuff into one pile. And the reason I broke it down this way again is there's a lot of stuff going on. And unless we can focus everybody on pieces that all contribute to the same goal, we're all jumping after the same football. And you heard last time, unfortunately, we had to stop the discussion, but one of our members was very frustrated about something as simple as access for disabled folks getting on buses, or the type of traffic lights that talk. Now, if all of us are looking at the same thing and we have nothing else to do in our lives, then I would say that we can all focus on all of those things simultaneously. I would like us to fast organize so that we cover all of this stuff in a way that, we can ensure that somebody is tagged to provide the sanity check for mass transit access. Somebody is tagged, or a group of people are tagged. Somebody is tagged for cyclists and pedestrians and safety. And hopefully, if we can organize our efforts and break it down a little bit, then we'll have a much better chance of covering all the bases that need to be addressed when we talk about transportation writ large for the region.
James,
Mr. Chair.
sounded if she was going to make a
Yeah,
point about
I think
something
she
she
was.
wanted to add. Do we want
I defer to her. I need to talk as well.
She
Okay,
started
let Jane-
talking and then
Say whatever.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Jane? Hello, Jane.
can you hear us?
Yes,
Did you want to
I'm here.
suggest an amendment or were you done?
Yes, I would like to suggest an amendment in that I think we should target particular areas where we can find people who are challenged financially and physically. I think that would be pretty easy to do since we have a lot of people that are moving into Fredericksburg area that are retired. And we have a lot of new retirement communities and over 55 communities. And we also have a need for the audible signals, and they could be placed in specific places, like near libraries or other places that people want and need to go. Not everywhere. They're not needed everywhere. But I think we could target those specific parts of the community and make it easier for them, and also with better sidewalks, and ask that the county consider making developers for residential and commercial areas to be responsible for those sidewalks, not the county.
Well, see, Jay, you're almost making my point, and that is just the issue of audible signals. It's not, it's not a blanket approach. It should be prioritized somewhat along the lines of what you just discussed. And so it sort of speaks for somebody who has perspective like yours, helping guide the effort so that we spend our dollars, not where we don't spend the dollars, but the dollars are spent that get the best bang for the buck, meaning the kinds of locations that you talked about, because you're probably right. It's cost prohibitive to put audible signals everywhere, that sidewalks or developments or something else that are constructed, but it makes eminent sense for somebody to take a look at where are the most critical spots. And that's why I would like to help subdivide the work a little bit to capture expertise and viewpoints like yours. Because I get the impression sometimes that the various planners in our respective communities are cranking on the project, is probably not the right word, but they're trying to complete the necessary degree of planning and don't always have the sanity check at the end that says, have you considered this because this is a library or a major intersection? Or have you considered that because if you add a bus route here, it would enable the mass transit solution that would be better for the community. They're very focused in what they're doing, and it would not hurt people like yourselves to provide a check and a balance and say, have you considered this because we believe in priority that these kind of things should be considered by you planners and then elected officials as you allocate money for things moving forward. So that's kind of the thought process behind all this. Now, in the mission statement, I don't want to drive you all nuts on this. I do think we need a mission statement. I was hoping that I would get some feedback prior to the meeting tonight. That's okay. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but if you have some recommendations on how this should look or sound, please send them to me. And we'll make them available so that we can vote on specific phrases, because what I don't want to do is turn this into a debating society over one slide. But I do want to know what you think, and without violating any FOIA rules, which we're going to get briefed on here in a little bit, you can send them back to me individually, and then I can compile this stuff as part of an agenda item that we're going to move forward with. So can I ask that we defer the exact wording of this, but with the understanding that I think we need a mission statement to help focus this particular unique body. Anybody in violent disagree?
We'll happily reflect those two comments in the minutes, so then you can put them into your prompts.
Please.
So
Plus, I'm sure.
Is there anything in the minutes that comment about mobility and all that? Just put the wording in, and we'll.
Yeah. Plus, this is also your opportunity, in light of this conversation, to throw in your 2 cents. So as long as you keep it one-on-one, you can always CC the CTAC staff representative, and we stay clean and with regard to FOIA. That way, we don't spend a lot of time at these meetings, focusing on specific words. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Again, this goes back to the point of where can we apply whatever effort? And if we get everybody fully engaged, terrific, then the priorities become seamless. All three of them are the same. But there is going to be push comes to shove with regards to money. Because, as you know, transportation dollars are limited, and we're going to have to recommend to somebody, consistent with what our people are telling us, where should the dollars go? And all the feedback I get is for the bang for your buck, number one, it's probably the priority that would help most people with the monies available. In terms of mass transit, I heard one elected representative candidate say, I would like to extend Metro all the way down here, except it's 100 billion plus, and it's not a reasonable solution. So I don't think we have to leave the cost benefit analysis, and we're not going to do it informal, but it's a common sense kind of thing, that we could take a look at priorities and what the various price tags of those priorities are, and make some recommendations consistent with those priorities on where our elected leaders and FAMPO and GWRC should spend the money. And then third, last but not least, is there are things we can do, such as safe crossings, audible lights, and so on, to enhance citizen safety. So these are the priorities that I proposed. I'll open this up for discussion. Please.
Just like without saying anything about the mission statement, I'll send that to you, email. But I think one of our priorities here, and maybe the most important one, and it certainly was when I was chairman where you're sitting, and I think Dave McLaughlin did the same, we just carried on, is to attain a better representative role, each member of CTAC in the community. And by that, the members of CTAC should be recognized better in the community and recognized for what their worth is regarding transportation. And that's pretty broad, but that would be a good place to start. How many members in here have been here for a while, have a baseball cap that says FAMPO on it?
We didn't get one, did we?
I have one. How many members here have a name tag that you could wear at a VDOT public meeting that indicates who you are, aside from the bevy of engineers that tend to talk to the public more than FAMPO members at presentations, which are critical to success in this region? So nice, I love it. I've got mine right here too. That's essential. And I think, what's the cost of a cap that says FAMPO and a tag that says FAMPO on it? I've worn my cap to probably a half a dozen football games in the last 2 years. Football games have kind of gone by the wayside in the last year. But no one has ever walked up to me and said, oh, it's FAMPO. Because I was ready to tell them what it was. And we need to take up our responsibility as representatives of the sectors that we're already divided into here. If we choose it that way, we've kind of gone vanilla in our approach. Even back when I was chairman, we really haven't emphasized much. What are you doing in your area? What is Dave Swan doing in Parkwood? Now, I started to do it when I was chairman. I started to go door to door like a politician. And I found out a lot of things just by talking to the citizens, because they know what's going on, believe it or not. And they know when their road hasn't been worked on in 20 years, whereas I didn't. And it's only a half a mile from my house. And I've been here through the whole 20 years. So I think my point here, without elaborating a lot on it, is we need to ensure that whatever we do, mission statement or priorities, we use the word representative or some synonym to indicate our actual role here. And secondly, we deliberately find ways to break ourselves out from the rank and file public out there. And I'm not saying that because I'm being haughty or trying to elevate us. But if I were a coach, we need to raise our game. And there should be citizens out here, you know, when you're down at an event in Fredericksburg, who recognize you, and you should have your FAMPO pin on or whatever, if it's a public venue. In that way, the first time you stimulate a conversation, you can check off success at that, because at least they know what you represent. They may not know exactly, but they know you're, you know, what is FAMPO? So I know we struggled with that, Dave, as you recall, back when we were trying to both build membership on this board and reach out to the public. And when we think about this, just a final parting comment, it's not just citizens, it's businesses as well. We need to go in the front door of those businesses, and I've been successful at that just by accident because I had a business in Stafford County and I interacted with a lot of other businessmen, so I know them. And the problem we're having is our small businesses are declining in number, and so we've got to overcome that as well. But we can't just think, you know, channel thinking here that, you know, we're going to find an easily targetable audience. It's somewhat broader, but we've got to clearly define our role within the community.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And you sort of segue into the next slide. Let's jump to that for a second.
I was going to ask, is the gentleman suggesting we add a fourth point? Or is it the point on the structure? We'd like to capture your idea somewhere. Where would you suggest we capture it?
Well, first of all, in the mission,
I'm sorry. Go one more if you would.
Hank may have already done it here.
See, one of the things on here is formulate strategy. This would be one of the subcommittee chairman or focus group chairman or whatever you want. Formulate strategy to identify and engage stakeholders. I couldn't agree more with what you said. I intend to go sit and talk to the board of supervisors during the public session. And then hopefully, you know, if you get yourself known and you start advocating for some of these things, you'll get invited for formal briefings or for other kinds of venues that give you voice. Better Business Bureau, small business organizations. You all know your respective communities a lot better than I do, but we need to engage them. And we need to have a strategy to do so that they are speaking on the same sheet of music as we are. And I know that sounds kind of trite, but you alone, even if you are so dedicated and you have so much shoe leather that you're willing to go door to door to door, is not as effective as talking to the right audiences, the right letters to the editor, commentary pieces in the local publications, interviews from WFLS, things like that, where you say, look, I work with the Citizens Transportation Advisory Council, which is a subset of the Fredericksburg Area Master Planning Organization. But these are the kinds of things we would like your input on, because we want to advocate for these and make sure that we are reflecting the kinds of things that our citizenry want. We are another avenue for you, and we'll go ahead and advocate for those things because you have told us what makes sense. Now, I am not a social media type. I detest Messenger and TikTok and all the rest of that stuff. Some of you are very adept at it, and that's terrific.
You don't have a Facebook page?
Pardon me?
You don't have a Facebook page?
No. Well, I'm on Facebook, but I think I updated it 7 years ago. Yeah. But there are people among you who do that very well, or you know somebody. So this, again, is another reason why I want to to task organize our efforts so we can do just that, because that's not easy. What you just described requires patience and effort and coordination and a strategy that once we decide what is it that we should be advocating for, how do you get the public behind it? And if you do that from a regional perspective, it provides something that doesn't exist right now, because you're transcending the somewhat narrow focus that each one of our jurisdictions have, and you're moving into something that is for the benefit of the common good. I'm sorry I jumped ahead a couple of slides, but
Well, that's good.
But I couldn't agree with you more on how to do that. The real issue is, how do we get there from here? We can all sit here as a big amorphous group and say, go for it, or we can organize ourselves into things that interest you, that you think you can make a contribution to, and let's start taking this big, huge thing and winnowing it down so we can become more effective.
One,
Please.
another comment if I may. David Swan, by the way. I'm very frustrated with Stafford County, and I'm not shy about my frustration.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. The reason I'm frustrated is because in my 6 years on this committee, no planner, no traffic planner, no community planner, no county supervisor other than chance meetings at the landfill or someplace has ever talked to me just in everyday conversation about Stafford County or the metro region that we're representing here. I find that very disappointing. And I know who to blame, but there's a lot of things going on in these counties and things that we don't see. And there's communications that we don't see. And I've been frustrated by that. And at one point I reached out from here and said, hey, can we bring these engineers in from the counties to brief us? And Stacy, and I don't think you were here, and went the extra mile and started that. And unfortunately, I was not at the meeting. I was in New York when the Stafford engineer came in. But he didn't contact me. Now, the measure of our existence, Hank, is call Stafford County and ask who sits on CTAC in the planning section. If they don't give you an immediate response, there's something wrong. And I'll bet that every single municipality, you'll find the same response.
Well,
Maybe not yours. Well, Fredericksburg's a little, yeah. Well, Matt Kelly and those people. Now, the Stafford County supervisors, and even my own supervisor, who's not running, yeah, they know you because the cities. Yeah, the technical advisory committee is a good idea, but you get committed out. If you have, like I do, I still work. So that's been a frustration for me. And I don't, first of all, we've got to get the recognition from our own governments, our own staff in these counties as to who we are, if we're ever going to succeed. Because if we go to a VDOT presentation, and there should be a county planner there, especially if it involves a major artery, and that person doesn't come over and engage you, then there's something wrong with that. It's an indicator that we're not being effective. And I try to go to everything that Stafford County advises me on. Sir.
Rodney Thomas, have you ever went down and talked at one of the board meetings and brought this up to them?
Not this.
Because I live in Stafford too.
Yeah, I've gone to the board meetings. Yeah.
And I can tell you probably 4 out of the 7, it seems like they're more worried about how they get reelected than solve problems.
Yeah.
So I think that is something that maybe we need to go down and,
Yeah.
And
as a team,
Yeah.
so that there's some memory of not just one person,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
3 or 4 who come in and say, hey, this is who we are.
Yeah.
And I've thought about doing that, making a cold call on the planning commission, but I'd have to do it, during their working hours, and unfortunately,
There's a few of them that will talk.
they're about the same as mine. Oh, I know they would
Yeah,
talk.
there's a few.
Okay, State, I'm sorry.
Yeah, easy solution. You might have not been at the last meeting, but the last
I
meeting
was.
at the very end, so I think we had dismissed the meeting and people were cleaning up. I passed out a sheet of paper, actually several, and it had the email addresses and names of your locality planners.
Oh,
Do reach out to them. They are very responsive people. I'll get you guys the sheet after the meeting if anyone wants that, or lost their copy. They're great. I am nobody in the transportation planning world, and they respond to me like that. They give you great concise answers. They can point you to different resources. So definitely just reach out and say, this is who I am. I'm on CTAC. They all know what CTAC is because most of them are TAC members, the Technical Advisory Committee. So
Right.
definitely just reach out that way, and I think that will solve your problem.
well,
They're great with communicating once they, have a channel established.
But I think you need to get to the supervisors.
yes, you do.
Well, again, that goes back to come up with the strategy to get ourselves. Now, I'm going to go out there and hit the Stafford folks just to sort of let them know, hey, we're serious, we're an asset, and we want your engagement because this is what we're getting from our citizens. And I would hope everybody would do the same thing with their own jurisdictions. But again, there's some other folks you should hit, like the planners. I happen to know Jeff Harvey very well, only because I've served on the airport authority for 13 years. And I probably have some contacts that some of you don't have, but that doesn't mean you cannot start engaging. So again, we need to wire ourselves so that the experience you've encountered and you've encountered, we can take advantage of that and get out and get it, not get in everybody's faces unless it's absolutely necessary, but start telling them that just because a bunch of builders want to do this, your constituents don't want this to occur. And it's about time you start listening. And, politicians, please cover your ears. Politicians panic around election time because all of a sudden, if they haven't been listening, they start getting the Holy Grail and start listening. I would like to provide them that feedback as continuous as we can so that they have an accurate pulse of the people and don't listen to the last phone call from the local builders association or whatever. But you all are making my case for me. There are things we can do. We can engage, but we've got to get organized. We've got to strategize, and we need to share the wealth because there's an awful lot to do. And there's no sense beating up on him or one person. There's enough of this for everybody to get involved if we're going to be effective.
And I thought,
So you can. Well, let's get you first.
Yeah, like you say, there's a lot of work to do. One thing that occurs to me is that might chase off a lot of CTAC members. Because most of us, I don't know about most of us, a number of us aren't retired with a lot of time on our hands. We're doing a lot just to spend 1 week, 1 day a month at this meeting and asking people, or even letting the word out that they're expected to do more. I think it's going to chase off future people, if not some of the current ones.
Well, that's why I want volunteers. I can't ask somebody, you have to gauge what's in your realm. Now, I have to confess, I just retired, but, until I retired, I was on several committees and I understand the frustration, but this is why I think sharing the wealth to the degree you can, I don't want CTAC to become your life. Everybody's got a life, but to the degree you can provide the effort, if it's properly focused, that's what I think we need to do. Get a comment.
Tamara, thanks. So as a committee, we're supposed to rely on each other, correct? So if you have full-time jobs, we should ourselves know each other well enough to know who can do what and when.
Right.
Everybody here should be comfortable calling that person and saying, hey, I got this contact. I'm emailing you or smoke signaling you on what I need done. Can you do this for me? As committees, we work together like that. Our name is going to get out there. I talk to people all the time, randomly on the street. I've been to the business in Stafford. I've been visiting Spotsylvania, all over the place. I'm pretty well known, but I'm also out there. So coming in here, yeah, this is great. But if you're not actually getting out to the community and constantly talking about it, even at the grocery store, hey, do you know about this, that, and the other? Hey, do you know there's a building going up? How many times do we read the paper and there's proposals in there, but we don't read them? As soon as we see those building proposals come up, we should be, hey, in the newspaper or online, whatever, city planners, we got this thing going up. What do y'all know about it? That's the constant communication that we need to keep it going and keep it growing.
No, you're right. But I'm also cognizant of a lot of you have day jobs.
That is my day job.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm going to ask for volunteers, because it's a function of your ability, your willingness, your available time to the degree you can contribute to participate in this. We may not get to 100%, but if we can start down the road, hopefully we'll create a momentum, get more people on this committee from the jurisdictions who are fired up about finding solutions and advocating for those solutions, that maybe our job will start a wave and get things done. So again, that's good.
Thanks. I'm
May I chime in, please? This is Jane Leeds.
I'm sorry, say again?
Jane.
It's Jane Leeds.
You just have to bear with me. I have tanker ears. Go ahead, please.
Okay. I recently contacted a Corporal Jurgensen. He was in an article about 2 months ago in the Fredericksburg Free Press. Corporal Jurgensen is a retired Marine. He was injured in Iraq. He lost his vision and some of his physical ability to move well. He is very excited about joining in with me because we're both disabled, and his wife, and collecting the community behind us to make things happen in the transit portion of our community, because he lives in Stafford and I live here in Spotsylvania. And one of the things that we're most interested in right now is the VA facility that's being built here in Fredericksburg that opens in about 3 years. And the transit quality to get to that facility is abysmal for anybody who is challenged physically or financially. And it's going to open a lot of jobs for people who may not have the financial resources to have a car or visit the clinic there. Our servicemen and women are dependent upon us to get them there. So we can get them behind us, I am sure. There's a lot of retired military that lives here. They are, gung-ho. They'll be out there advocating and getting the word out to the men and women on our service quarters. So that is a very targeted community, but I am sure that they will get in there and get the job done. They are Marines, after all, Semper Fi.
I can give you some good news. Good news is that the Spotsylvania planners are doing exactly that. In fact, they're harassing Fred Transit to implement additional service to that new clinic. They're harassing me to approve money to build the infrastructure in that particular area.
Money.
So trust me, they are pushing hard to develop the transit infrastructure, the roadway infrastructure, and the sidewalk infrastructure to that clinic. I think Spotsylvania is planning on spending something like $180 million just on improvements. Fred is being asked to, and so on. So there is good news coming. It is being planned. Mr. Chair, my only comment was, I know that you want to try and get a result to your presentation. And I know some people are going to submit you online comments. I have one, and I know I'm not a representative of the community, but but I am a representative of the staff that does plan. Just looking at the slide or the page 3 about CTAC priorities, if you want to flesh that out, my one comment is that the third one, I think, is the third priority is a good one, but it stops short. In other words, it focuses again on roads. So you start off by gridlock on the key corridors, which is roads. Then you focus on mass transit, which is a good thing. Then you focus again on safety, but specifically on roads. I just would suggest that you broaden that to be more than just safety on roads. I think there's sidewalks, bike paths.
I got shot down on that. I'm glad to put it. We had a little preliminary meeting on this.
You did?
Yes, and I was shut down by your staff. No, but that's okay.
I'm sure that there may be a reason for what was said, but the point is
No, I understand. It was the original.
that safety is just more than roads. That's all I'm saying. And I think
You're
you
correct.
think through how exactly you want to deal with that, but safety is more than just roads.
What I would like to do is, Josh is going to talk to you about some organizational design and structure, but it would be unfair for me to ask you to vote on something that you now have a better sensing on where I want to go on this. So I want you to chew on this, but I really want you to feed back, because I think we need to get on with it, either what I proposed or modified or enhanced or improved on or what. So if you would put your thinking caps on in the next couple of weeks, and whatever slide or comment or anything that you want to chime in on, I think I have articulated where I think we need to go and how we should organize for comment. If you've got some tweaks, you want to toss the whole thing out and make a revision, I'm okay with that. But I think you have a better sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, of what I think we need to do. Is anybody confused? I can't believe I explained it that well. Okay, so please take a little bit of time, play with this, feed back to me before the next meeting, and that means in the next couple of weeks, so that I can take what you've gotten, give it to the staff so it can be included as talking points, recommended changes for vote or whatever, and we can come to closure on this. Please.
We have everybody copied in.
The only way we can do that, unfortunately, by not violating the FOIA laws, correct me, is the initial thing has to be one-on-one. You can info the staff. We'll give you the compilation of stuff as part of the packet for the next meeting.
So all the comments we can put in a pack and send the pack to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can't copy everybody on everybody's email because she will go to jail.
We've done that for years.
Yes,
But
we have.
we
I'll
will,
tell you why you can't in a minute.
Wait to her briefing.
I think that you can rest assured that any comment you send to the chairman that you copy us on, we will put in a pack and make sure you all get it. We just won't send it
Get it,
Blanket email.
like one at a time.
Shotgun.
we'll get it same day.
Yeah, you'll get it a week before when the previous week we send out the agenda with a pack with all your comments in.
We're not gonna get it timely, we're gonna get it later, is that what you're saying?
No, you'll get it before the next meeting. And
Not,
It's better to get it blow by blow so we can see how things are processing.
I would love to be able to accommodate you. I'm not sure we can do that legally.
Well, let's do it illegally. And nobody-
We haven't.
I personally, I subscribe to the ask forgiveness later, but so there's going to be some scheming person out there that's going to hold me up in front of whatever. So I'm going to I'll defer that to your discussion. I would like for everybody to participate, but in the way that we don't violate state law.
if I can just suggest, your next meeting is in January, right?
Must be.
So if you send it all to us by December, we will in good time send it all to you to think about before the January meeting. In other words, at the latest, a week before your meeting, but hopefully earlier. So that you won't get it on the day of the meeting or the day before the meeting. You'll have at least a week to think through whatever's been submitted. Would
Maybe
that,
give us some time to add more comments.
I'm not sure if we do
That's
that.
the way, this is the way I
No,
tend to.
no, I got you. I'm trying to figure out a way to do this legally.
I mean, you can back and forth to the chairman 25 different times between now and the meeting. The problem is that there's a FOIA rule about communication.
Can we put the compilation of comments as of a certain date up on the CTAC website?
Or email it to you. So we can, I'm sure, Stacy, we're legally allowed to take the pack and email it to everybody, right?
Yeah, it's
So
just
we
the
can collect all your,
discussion is the issue.
so we can collect all your comments 3 weeks from now, then email you the pack. That we can do. So you can get it in 3 weeks' time if you want it.
It's just that I guess I can't do it.
You can't, what you can't do is start a dialogue as if you were in a meeting, because that has to be a public meeting. But we can certainly collect all your comments, put them in a document and say, here are all the comments received, and send that to everybody. Because then it's,
If we can do that legally, that's
is
terrific.
that legal?
Yeah.
She's leaving, so, you know.
Send it, it doesn't have to be a,
So-
it just has to be, you can't have more than 2 people.
So- So we can collect your comments 3 weeks from now and send them all to all of you. And you can freely email one-on-one between each other. You just can't start a dialogue with multiple people simultaneously, not in the public view.
Right.
You know?
Mass, email.
Yeah, you can't go out there and start a debate among all of you offline,
Yes.
out of the public eye, and then come here with a conclusion, because that will be seen as violating FOIA. What you can do is email one-on-one. So any two of you can email each other, of course. You can phone each other. You just can't have all these people together having a debate without the public being involved and comments being recorded by staff, because then that becomes a kind of secret meeting. That's the point.
So basically, if we get it in December, nobody responds back and there's no group chats after that. You have to just take it as an artifact and you can send it to Hank and send any replies directly to Hank, but you can't hit reply all.
You can't have a private meeting. That's the thing. So if one of you emails another one of you, that's fine. Go ahead. You can email another person. But you can't have sort of an online meeting without inviting the public. You can't have a private discussion without inviting the public, because then it constitutes a meeting.
We'll get the collaboration on that.
I only understand 10% of what you're saying, so.
We're gonna try to get these comments as legally and as quickly as we can. And if we can do this in more than one iteration between now and the January meeting, we'll do that.
If you set a date by which everybody should send in the comments, I will undertake to put them in a document and send them all back to you on any date that you choose.
About 2 weeks from tonight. Can everybody give us your first cut 2 weeks from tonight?
Want to say Friday, the 26th of November?
Let's just say, that's Thanksgiving week, and I know you're all gonna be motivated with turkey. Let's say that Monday.
Okay, the 22nd or the 29th?
29.
We'll give it 29.
Okay. the
29th is the
November
suspense for the initial.
So by the 29th, you will have sent whatever comments you want to send. We will, after the 29th, Stacy won't be here, but I will make sure it gets done. We will collate your comments into a document, or you can do it, whatever. And we will send it out to you via email to everybody, so that everybody gets the same comments and it's made publicly available.
And Stacy is not recalled from her new job to go to jail. It is important.
Or I'll go to jail.
All right, so everybody understand the way forward. Then I would like to defer this. Now, I'd like Josh to go ahead and give you his presentation so you have a perspective on organizational structure. Please, I'm sorry.
There was the issue that was brought up last meeting about the costs of having these meetings held in a public place and public notice and being recorded and so forth. We haven't touched on that this evening.
Stacy's going to do a
Yeah,
presentation.
he's going to give a presentation.
It's 8A on our list.
It's 8P on your agenda.
Yeah, it's on here.
Coming up on your agenda.
We're getting to that, is that what you're saying?
Yes,
That's tomorrow.
tonight, definitely.
Okay, turn it over to Josh.
Excuse me. I'm Joshua Brock. I represent the city of Fredericksburg. Just a little about me real quick. I'm an engineer by education and training. I spent most of my career in mechanical and aerospace engineering. I do have a master's degree in engineering management, which was where some of this comes from. And so I'm not necessarily going to be talking about the structure. I mean, we talked about subcommittees, things like that. In terms of that kind of structure, that's sort of up in the air. That's subject to relevant laws or whatever it is we actually decide to do, whatever's best for that. What I want to talk about is really more about what an organization does, what it needs to do in order to be a good organization. So I'm not really disagreeing with anything that anyone just said so far. I just want to make sure that we know where in an organization this kind of effort needs to be applied. I mostly don't want us to spend a whole lot of time and effort doing somebody else's job, you know, something that someone else is in a position to do. So what I want to talk about is something called the viable system model. And this is a very, very, I guess I would say very brief introduction to a part of it. And all this means is what are the rules by which we can understand any kind of system? And a system is a transportation system, is a system, a political system, a business, any kind of organization that we are trying to manage is a system. And they all follow the same rules. And so they all have the same roles that need to be filled. And there are 5 of these roles, and they have specific designations. I've renamed them here, so if you go look this up, you won't see this. But this is just to give you an idea of what these roles do. Operation, coordination, management, prediction, and guidance. Those are the 5 roles we're going to be looking at. And when I say roles, I want to emphasize very particularly, this doesn't tell you which people or how many people are in these roles. If you're a cell phone business, you operate out of your garage, you will be doing all of these roles. If you're a huge multinational conglomerate organization, you might have entire buildings for just part of one of these roles. So these are roles that need to be done. These aren't necessarily specific people. So real briefly going through what these are, operation does the actual productive work of the organization. So if you look at a factory that makes shoes, the people who actually make the shoes are operation. That's not the management, that's not the accountants, that's not anybody else, that's just the people who do the actual work. So FAMPO, you look at FAMPO as an organization that has outputs, the actual people who do those outputs are operation. Coordination makes sure that the various units of the organization don't conflict with one another. This could be as simple as a piece of paper on a wall, making sure that 2 different classes in the university don't use the same classroom at the same time. It could be that simple. It could be a huge planning group whose job it is to coordinate hundreds of individual production lines. Okay, so their job is to make sure they don't conflict. Management, when I say management, I refer to a specific group, a specific role in an organization. Their job is to issue policies and measure progress, make sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing. If you have a budget committee, they're probably going to be here assigning resources. If you have somebody making rules for the organization, they're going to be there. So prediction is the 4th one. Their job is to take a look into the future and see there's going to be a big population increase, so we need to plan for more traffic congestion. There's going to be a new law or a new bill that's come down that's going to change our priorities, and here's what we need to do to prepare for that when it gets here. That's their job. And the last role that is available for us to play is called what I'm calling guidance. And they're a little special. Their job isn't necessarily to actually produce anything per se. You can't necessarily look at what they're going to do. But their job is to determine the goals and the values of the organization or system. That's their primary job. So the reason I emphasized roles earlier is that here at FAMPO, we've got the CTAC, we've got the TAC, we've got the policy committee. They're going to have roles to play in all of these different avenues I've discussed. Just because we're a distinct organization or distinct group within the organization doesn't mean we have to be confined to one of these particular roles. The other thing that guidance does is it makes sure that the organization isn't spending too much time looking into the future and neglecting what needs to be done today, or the reverse. It's not just focused very narrowly and not seeing what's coming down the pipeline. And that's important for us as CTAC, and I'll get into it in its perspective. What's important to remember is guidance has a systems perspective. Its job is to be above all of the different little groups inside it and to look at them and make sure that they're all working together and getting along. So the 5 options that we have, and this kind of gives it away. So the CTAC doesn't actually do the productive work of FAMPO. Whatever outputs FAMPO has, we don't do it. We may have a role in producing them and advising them, but we don't actually sit down and write the papers or the reports or the spreadsheets or whatever. We don't make sure that the subunits are working together. We're not a scheduling service, we're not a planning service. We don't issue policies, much as I'd like to. We don't look into the future per se and produce models, right? We might look and say, there's a new big building coming, there's a new important thing that we think is important. We could say that, but we're not actually producing the output. We're not producing models, we're not producing spreadsheets, whatever. So our role, the only role really available to us, is to contribute to the organization's priorities and values. So if you want to talk about, should we do this with subcommittees? Should we do this through some other kind of structure? That's all valid. But what's more important is where we do it in the organization. It's not as important specifically how. That's particular to whatever it is we're doing. I'll summarize and then I'll comment a little bit. Every system, Bible system, has 5 roles that need to be done. The only one that CTAC really fits into strongly is guidance. Guidance helps guide the organization, generates its values and general priorities. And I made a big note to myself here. What I heard a lot of us talking about in the previous presentation was going out into the community, going to the other units inside FAMPO, being a presence, gathering information, bringing it back here, taking our conclusions and putting them out there. That is a perfect role for what we do. We're not in a position to actually write policy or create models or tell anybody what to do or spend money. But we are in a position to say, we are the duly appointed representatives of the public. It's our job to exercise this kind of soft power and come in and say, if we are the public at its face here, then you would do well to listen to what we, the public, think is important. Yeah, so if you wanted to look it up later, the Bible system model was invented by a man named Stafford Beer. It's not my work. I also wanted to specifically thank Stacy. Without her work, none of this would be here and you wouldn't be listening to me. So thank you very much.
Any questions?
Yes.
Questions, comments?
One, in order to do a good job in providing guidance that can help guide an organization generate value, you got to have credibility.
Absolutely. People have to.
And I think we'll find we don't have a lot of credibility because we do this part-time. We're not professional planners. We're not professionals in transportation. Half the time, we don't even know the acronyms and everything else that the TAC is talking. Those guys are talking about day in and day out. It's going to be a real challenge for us. A lot of credibility to come up with things that are really going to be significant and make big changes. So I'm not saying, we have to appreciate that. There's some, some of us are brand new, first meeting. Some people have been around a while, know a little bit more. People come and go. It's going to be tough.
Well, you're exactly right, but it doesn't mean that you can't look at something and do a sanity check. Now, most of your representatives are part-timers. I don't think anybody in the region has a full-time elected representative. So yeah, there is some catching up to do, but you, with the exception of their planning staff, are at the same level. Some of them may have been doing it longer, and some of you may have been doing this longer. Now, just because a person is a professional planner, nobody's going to go in there and check his work on his traffic study. I don't feel comfortable doing that, but I can do something like, have you considered this consistent problem that's been identified with a turn lane, or the citizens have said we need bicycle racks or something like that. And it could very well be that that technician, because that's what these planners are, has not considered that, or in the plethora of stuff, it's going right over the head. We are not experts. Granted, but it doesn't hurt us to provide a sanity check for a lot of this and provide the input from the citizenry as to, yeah, I know this is your professional job, but has this been considered? We do the sanity check with the planners. We do the influencing with the elected officials.
Exactly right.
And I think that the point to add on to what Dave was saying is that your credibility comes by having talked to the community and come with well thought through proposals.
Oh, absolutely. We need to make ourselves known.
If you come
That was your point.
If you come with a well thought through proposal that has taken input from a bunch of the public, then you gain. Then you say, we've thought through all these 5 options. We've spoken to 25 people. We debated it here, and all of us agree we have to have a new sidewalk on this street before we have a bike path on this other place. It comes with some credibility because there's been a process, there's been consultation, there's been agreement here. So your credibility comes through process.
Exactly right. And that kind of perspective is something that the technician is not expected to have because they're focused on the technical aspects of the product. This is where we make a contribution. Somebody else have a comment, either for me or for Josh?
What was the point of this presentation? You should make some change or something?
Well, what inspired me to comment was if we're going to be talking about making a change or clarifying what it is the CTAC does or what we want to do, then it behooves us to understand what our options are for doing things. So as Hank said, we are not in a position to go in and tell the planners, you need to make this technical change or that kind of thing. That's their job. Our position is, as he said, one of influence, one of advocacy, one of saying we are the face of the public in FAMPO in an advisory capacity.
So you're not recommending any changes?
I'm not recommending.
May I chime in, please?
We're giving
Yes,
you a different
This is
perspective.
Jane
be
Lee.
aware of what we can do.
Change.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, there is a very simple way to do that. Take away their car keys for a week. Make them live as you live, as a consumer. Any engineer, any politician, any planner can see for themselves what it's like.
Jane,
I've never had anybody take me up on that challenge. Not one
I'm not
person.
sure that I would advocate that, but that may be an option.
Jane, this is Sarah Duran. That reminds me of years ago, I was on the Community Services Board with United Way. I've done that through different United Way boards. And one of the most impressive nonprofits I've come across in different localities was the Disability Center here in Fredericksburg. And the founder, he got injured just by playing racquetball at the Y right over here. And he went down to the General Assembly and got a group of legislators to spend a day in a wheelchair to understand what it was like. I've never forgotten. That's been, gosh, I remember that story from when I first moved to the district, so almost 20 years ago. That's like, my own father lived in a wheelchair for 20 years. So obviously this resonated in my mind. It's not a crazy idea to say, walk in my shoes, no pun intended, for a moment and understand what it's really like.
Are there any other?
Absolutely, that's what it's all about.
No, clearly. But I think you're starting to see possibilities, Jane, and hopefully we'll come. There's a lot we can do depending on people's time, and I want to get this thought out well so that we're not spinning wheels. Because again, you all have business, you all have families, and this is not your full-time job. I got it. But I think if we wire ourselves correctly, you take the perspectives that were offered by Josh, the discussion we've had, feed back to me, please, by the Monday after Thanksgiving, so we can come to closure on this and define how we want to move forward. Any other questions? Business, these two presentations and the issues we've discussed before we move on. Please.
But the thing of it is, I was a person who had to do everything that everybody else had to do with a full-time job when I was a consumer of public transit. I do know what it's like firsthand. I know what works and I know what doesn't work.
Then I hope you'll share that perspective with us, because I don't presuppose to know what each one of you, what your ability to chime in on. So Jane, please let me know. And again, this is a volunteer effort. You all are here because you raised your hand, and I'm not going to reach out and tag you and say you're it, because that's unfair to everybody. So think about this, think about how much you want to commit, but I think we can minimize the impact on any one person by organizing ourselves and moving forward. Jane, anything else you'd like to contribute?
Not right now, thank you.
Okay, well then I would like to take this discussion, table it to the next, or the meeting in January, and please send your feedback, because I want us to move on, and I don't want to keep you here until 10 o'clock at night. Okay, then I'd like to go ahead to item number 6, and Stacey, if you provide a review of the policy meeting. By the way, the next one is Monday, and you're all welcome to attend. It's an interesting event. It's here, 6 p.m. You can speak as a member of the public if you choose to. I'm a non-voting member, and I intend to make comments, but it's an interesting experience if you have the time. Please.
Sure, just a couple points, some highlights from the last meeting in October. First, the FAMPO administrator, Ian Wallace over there, he encouraged the committee to adopt a vision in order to guide the committee's work. Policy committee member noted that a sticking point is that they can't predict how technology will influence the needs of transportation. So FAMPO staff will be presenting information at a future policy meeting on what the current state of emerging technology is. Also, the state's Department of Rail and Public Transit gave a presentation on the development of the state's rail plan. They're in the process of developing that. They said there's going to be a lot of public comment effort in the coming year, so watch for some emails coming out on that. A policy committee member from Fredericksburg did stress that commuter rail is a priority for the FAMPO region. And the DRPT official replied that she was well aware of that, and the plan does have place a priority on commuter rail for our area. He also expressed concern about the rail cars. You've probably seen it in the news with hazardous waste sitting near neighborhoods downtown, and she also said that she would personally look into that matter. On another note, Mr. Ollis gave an update on the East-West multimodal study. He said that the stakeholder study group has already discussed goals, survey results, the anticipated regional growth and problem areas, and the next stakeholder meeting, which is open to the public, you're welcome to attend, will be December 6th at 10:30 a.m. right here in this room. Is that correct? And finally, the policy committee discussed future work to update its bylaws and membership policies. FAMPO staff were asked at that meeting to do some research. Mr. Ellis is asked to work with the chief or the county and city chief administrative officers to kind of gather everybody's take on what the new bylaw should look like. And that's all.
Okay, questions? Okay, now public comment. Have we received any others than the packet that was put in, or the comments that were put in the packet?
We have not. We might have somebody online. I'm not sure.
Okay, anybody online that from the public that would like to make a comment? Hearing none, I'm sure you all read the comments, the written comments. They all have to do, I believe, with bus availability in Caroline County. And do we have a representative from Caroline County right now?
We have 3, but they're not here.
Okay, please.
The suggestion, Mr. Chair, I spoke to Stacey before the meeting about this. With regards to a new potential bus route, a local county or city would have to request it from the transit agency and contribute to the funding.
Right.
So my suggestion, and in view of the fact that these folks presumably are from Caroline County, I'm going to suggest that what you do is with the permission of the committee, direct us, the staff, to send this to the Caroline County Board of Supervisors with a suggestion that they investigate this possibility and for them to take it further. Because the local jurisdiction and the transit agency are the two organizations that have to agree on the funding. FAMPO is a facilitator, but we have no power to instruct that such a transit facility is established. We merely facilitate finding funding, facilitate drawing maps, facilitate the process, but we don't make decisions on behalf of another county. They have to make the decision. So I would suggest that.
Can I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to send this along.
Dave Swan will second it.
Okay,
There you go.
any discussion?
Repeat the motion.
The motion is that FAMPO send a letter to Caroline County Board of Supervisors recommending that they conduct a study to expand bus service in light of the three discussion points raised by, we presume, citizens of Caroline County.
You're welcome to write a short letter from yourself.
I'd be more than happy to do so.
I just say we've received this. So the proposal is to say we're sending this to you, Caroline County, because we've received these public comments about the bus route in your area. We suggest you contact these folks and make a decision about what to do about their request.
Can I ask you to amend your motion that I'll sign the letter?
I will so amend.
Okay. Questions on the motion? You still second?
Just a comment. Yes, I still second.
Okay.
Dave Swan still seconds. Just a recommendation. I recently made a very good contact with Mr. Buddy Fowler, who's a legislator in that area and represents that area, and he's done it for, I guess, over 20 years. And he's a very impressive guy, and he's well connected. And I would recommend you info him.
Oh, yeah.
CC him, because I can tell you, if you get Buddy Fowler in your corner, you're going to get movement on the Caroline Board of Supervisors.
No, that's good.
Otherwise, you might not.
And again, this is not part of the motion, but now that I'm retired, I'm not adverse to going to see anybody face to face or talking to anybody, but I think that's a tremendous recommendation. So we can CC him and we'll start the process that way.
And I guarantee you, if you call his office, you can meet with him. I'd stake my
More than
case.
happy to do that.
Text her right now if you want me to.
Yes, Tara has contact with Buddy Fowler. Yeah.
I mean, so
I mean, those are things we need to leverage.
No, yes,
And
absolutely.
Buddy Fowler already knows who we are, you know, because I had a little discussion with him. But I don't think he has a intimate knowledge like he probably would like to.
Over the years, there are some people that we're not going to leverage on my behalf, but yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Okay, with that recommendation, I think it's a great one. The motion has been made and seconded. Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We prepare the letter, info gets to follow, and I'll sign that. Great. These are the kinds of things we need to do to establish our credibility and to start making our presence known. And I think that's a tremendous suggestion. Plus, it also tells the citizens somebody listened and is doing something. Now, in the future, if we do go to the committee structure, I would see a committee chairman doing something like that, taking action, telling us what they've done, but taking action because, you know, I don't need to do all that. We'll have a sidebar discussion.
First of all, Stacey's going to do a presentation just to make sure we do this legally. I prefer using the term focus groups than committees because if you say committee, there's a whole lot of legal stuff. So just call it a focus group, and it's very inadvisable to encourage chairpersons of a focus group to send letters on behalf.
We'll figure out a non-offensive name before we go forward. Okay.
Don't write letters on behalf of FAMPO if you're the head of a focus group, please. We will get into all sorts of legal trouble.
Okay, no other public discussions, closed public discussions. At this point, we're now getting to the point that everybody wants to hear, agenda item 8A of how we don't go to jail. All right.
And please keep a copy of this with you, and when you're having those little focus group discussions, whip it out and make sure you cross the T's and dot the I's, please. Thanks,
Yeah,
Stacey.
this is very lengthy. This is Stacey, by the way, for those taking minutes. Yeah, so it's meant to be a resource, so definitely hold on to it. Obviously, I'm not gonna be here, but there are other staff who are knowledgeable about this stuff. At the very end of the presentation, there's also a resource on there for the Virginia FOIA Council. They are open for public questions. You can give them a call and say, hey, what would, happen with this or that? If you happen to do that, please get it in writing and send it to us and say, this is what they're saying, so we can check that you're conveying the correct facts and they're telling you the correct application. But let's get into the presentation and I'll speak more about that later. So Virginia FOIA covers a wide range of things. Its intent is for a transparent government. Today, I'm only going to be telling you about how the public meeting laws would apply to CTAC, how they do apply to CTAC. So we're not getting into the access of documents and things like that. That's a whole other area. Yep, thank you. So what is Virginia FOIA? It is a state law that FAMPO, a public body, must follow. It ensures that the public has access to records and entry to the meetings of public bodies. And it also states that all public records and meetings shall be open to the public unless an exemption is properly invoked. It would be highly unlikely that CTAC would discuss any matter that would meet an exemption. Exemptions would be things about criminal records, about underage minor student records, employment topics, contracts, things like that. I
We
can't
cannot
imagine a
claim
situation.
national security.
No, not that either. So in sum, the point is to make the point of the law is to make government activities very transparent. So if it's frustrating, should be frustrating. That's the point. So does CTAC have to follow FOIA requirements for public bodies? Yes, they do, and I'm going to tell you why. So the FOIA definition of a public body, in summary, for my point, is a public body means any political subdivision of the Commonwealth, including planning commissions and other organizations supported wholly or principally by public funds. FAMPO meets that definition.
We're a planning commission.
Yes, and we are wholly supported by public funds. Moving on to the next point, this requirement for public bodies extends to any committee, subcommittee, or other entity, however designated, of the public body created to perform delegated functions of the public body or to advise the public body. There's CTAC.
And there is the key word, folks, subcommittee.
Right, and so what
So
is
there is
CTAC
where you have to
subcommittee?
pay careful attention.
Focus group, work group be required to follow FOIA requirements? Yes. No matter what you call it, yes, you're meeting those definitions. You're subject to follow FOIA. Next slide, please. These are the public meeting requirements. So don't confuse this with if you meet these, it's a defined public meeting. No, we'll get to the definition of what is a public meeting in the next slide. These are the requirements for a public meeting. You have to have a physical quorum present at one location, except in a state of emergency. As you all know, that's what happened during COVID. We are no longer in a state of emergency. That's why we're all gathered here in public with a physical quorum. The meeting has to be held in a place that is open to the public, and it also has to permit the public to record the meeting and procedures. So if you were to hold a subcommittee or focus group, or whatever you want to call it, in some place that does not allow the public to observe and record, video record, writing down, what have you, that would be a FOIA violation. The meeting must be announced to the public at least 3 working days in advance. Staff knows the specific requirements of exactly how things must be advertised. The agenda and meeting materials must be simultaneously provided to the public as well as CTAC members. We do that through our website. Written meeting minutes must be recorded. There is a caveat for subcommittees appointed by the governing body. So if the FAMPO Policy Committee said we're appointing a subcommittee, you do not have to take written meeting minutes for subcommittees, focus groups, what have
Let's say that again.
So if subcommittees that are appointed, the law actually says appointed by the governing body, which is the Financial Policy Committee, because they govern CTAC. If they appoint it, you don't have to take meeting minutes.
So if I go get them to make the appointments, we're okay.
You don't have to take meeting minutes, you have to appoint.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would say FAMCO staff would say, no, we need to take meeting minutes, because that's what we do by default, it's good practice.
Best practice.
Okay.
Next, so now we're into definition of a meeting. I heard a lot of squabbling, I always hear that of 2 or more people at the meeting, no, it's not. So just a reminder, meetings of public bodies must be open to the public and follow other FOIA requirements. But the definition of a meeting is when there's 3 or more members of any public body and you are discussing public business while sitting physically or through electronic communication. If you're communicating with more than 2 people through email, that's a public meeting by definition, and you've got to go and follow all those FOIA requirements.
So
If
just,
you're having a 3-way, 4-way, 5-way phone call, you got to follow the public meeting laws, which would be very difficult to do.
so just pause there for a second, because this is the crucial problem. If 3 of you get together to discuss the business of this committee or the business of your focus group, you can't do it without advertising 3 days in advance, inviting the public, having a venue that's accessible by the public. That's the problem, see?
Yeah, I'm getting to that. So if 3 or more committee members email or talk on the phone about public business, you can talk about the NAS game or whatever, that's okay. But you're talking about public business, that is a meeting by definition, and if you're not following FOIA, it's a FOIA violation. To avoid it, communicate in pairs only. If you want to talk about the business earlier about, hey, let me give you my feedback, do it in pairs, and then that other person can talk to the other person. Is it hindrance? Yes, and that's the point. The point of the law is to help the public see government actions clearly.
And the whole, I mean, the difficulty as a former politician is the law is attempting to prevent you making decisions or getting consensus in secret, so that you come with a preconceived decision that the public wasn't able to be part of. That's the point. Point is, you should not reach consensus or make decisions in private, because it hijacks the public's ability to participate.
Now, if I can interject 1 second, the last slide in the presentation that I gave everybody has months broken down into those various priorities, so that the monthly meeting could be the focus of the focus group, and they would get the ability to have all of this stuff provided for them. The vast majority of the meeting would be that particular discussion, so that the focused members don't have to sneak around in public and violate the law, but yet we could still do some other things. So that's why you saw that calendar with those little annotations on the bottom.
That's fine. You can do that. Each formal meeting becomes a topic, and that's fine. You can do that. No problem with that.
Just one other point to make here. So you may hear, oh, there was a legal case where people were allowed to communicate via email and it was determined not to be a public meeting. First of all, that's just one case. It doesn't apply to all situations. It didn't make a new law. And it was determined that if you had a conversation as a body, a public body, about public business through email, but the timing of such replies was so great, say 3 days in between, it wasn't an actual discussion, is what the court determined, and therefore it wasn't a meeting. We're not going to wade into that, because if you were all copied on an email and all replied, you don't know, you can't say, Tara, don't reply for 3 days. Matt, don't reply for 4 days. You know, there's no way of doing that. So don't do that. If you see that that was permitted, that was a one-time thing, just don't do it.
So for the comments you're going to provide back to me, you're going to email me and CC for the time being, Ian, to provide the staff collection point, or I can do that. But don't put anybody else, blind copy or anything on that email, so that we only go member to member. We don't slide in the third and you wind up going to jail.
And to be clear, you can put as many staff members as you want. You could put Matthew and me and Ian and Adam and Jordan, our other staff member, on your email. It
Copy
doesn't
the
apply to staff.
newspaper if you want to, just don't
Yeah.
copy everybody else in the group.
Right. This applies to you guys as members. Next slide. What happens if there's a violation? Civil action against Tampa as a public body could be against an employee, me, Matthew, Ian, or you. Member of a public body can also face legal action. That includes legal fees. First offense is up to $2,000. Second offense up to $5,000. Take away, stick to the law, ask staff about the policies. Don't assume that because you're on other committees and they do things differently, that that's the right way. We've really researched this. We've all taken training on this. Every time it's updated, we review it, and we print it out, and we go through it, and we talk about it as almost really an organization of GWRC. Everyone in the office often discusses changes to this. So please use this as a resource. If you have any doubt on what you should or should not be doing, just ask us. Well, I won't be here, but ask me. He knows.
Questions for Stacy?
Oh, is that? Oh, okay. Yes, so we're talking about FOIA, but that's not where it ends when it comes to what we need to do for public meetings. We also, because we're an MPO, there is federal law that says we must have a public participation plan, which we do. And so our public participation plan also has policies that say things like our meetings must be accessible to the public. So ADA requirements have to be in place. You can't have it in a building where there's not. Translation services, if someone shows up and they need translation services, we provide those free of charge. So you can imagine the issue if you guys were meeting without, advance notice to staff and in a building like this, you wouldn't know what to do. We wouldn't be there to help you. So I just caution you there with that as well. Just be mindful that apart from FOIA, there are many other public involvement policies that we have and we must follow. And there are your resources. The advisory council link is at the top. Their website looks super shady. That's the only word to describe it. You'll think it's not legitimate. It is legitimate, and you can give them a phone call anytime you want. If you want to question any of this, go ahead and call them and ask them. They're happy to talk. They're also happy to provide training. So you as a member of a public body, if you're interested in training, they have training courses that are free, and you can take those. And then there's a link to the actual law if you can't sleep at night and you want to be up early.
Okay.
It doesn't stop your communication. It just means keep it to two-way communication and bring the three-way communication to your next meeting. That's all it means. Just keep like that and you won't violate the law.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah, please.
Good evening. So while this is loading, my name is Tamara Banks. I want to do this more as a discussion and not a presentation. I think this is better to get the understanding across. Excuse me, sir, can I have my back to you?
No, you good? You're all right.
I would like to have this really as a discussion. So I have a few questions to ask each of you. And please chime in and just tell me. How many of you have ever taken public transportation? Just public transportation in general. How many of you have ever used public transportation in Virginia? How many have ever?
Many times.
How many of you have ever taken Fred Transit?
But not all.
For the ones that did not take Fred Transit, can I ask why?
Doesn't go where I want, when I want, as often as I'd like.
Okay. Okay. No one else? I'm sorry, because I couldn't. Here you go. Okay, next slide, please. When we're talking about transit, this is what transit can do for our region. and not just our region, because I come from larger transit systems also. But it relieves congestion, increases livability, reduces emissions, increases commerce, attract tourism, and increase employment. Can everybody agree that it does that? So how can we make those points better? With congestion, we talk about corridor service and express services. Everybody understand those terms? Because I may use terms that you may not know. And please stop me anytime if you cannot hear me, if I'm speaking too fast.
Well, I think that's to clarify that corridor service versus express service. It seemed like you left out local service.
Well, these are added on to local service. So a corridor service is transportation on major routes like 17, 3, 2.
In between hubs.
Right, 17, 3, 2, Route 1, the dreaded Route 1. Express service is a service that goes point A to point B on major highways, like it will travel 95, 64. We don't go 64, but it travels to places like that. That's an express service. But there's no stops in between, it's just A and B.
Okay. I was just wondering how local service fit into that, but you ignored that at the meantime.
No, local service will feed into those services.
Yes.
So you still have your routes, the D routes, the S routes, the F routes, but they would feed in to corridor and express services.
If you need them.
It is needed. And I'm going to get to why we.
It's like you're going to the movies.
Sir, let me get to it and I'll show you why all of this is important to every last person in the room. Okay? We talk about livability. People tend to shop and play where they live. When we talk about reducing emissions, again, we have so many cars on the road now. We always complain about Route 1, Route 3, 95. Yeah, any of those roads that get congested, especially the back roads. I am not a back roads person because this is my disclaimer. I'm a travel trainer for Hubby Generation. I get lost very easily because I'm not from here. I'm actually born and raised in Philadelphia, and I lived in Matthews County. So this is a jump for me. We talk about commerce. I would love to see someone from the Chamber of Commerce come and talk about commerce and why the bus system is so important in aiding that commerce. I'm still trying to infiltrate them because it's very important that the shops, these small businesses that we have here, get the people into there. Let's move the people from their area to the businesses. They'll shop. And I know that because I'm downtown on Friday nights and Saturday nights, and they are downtown shopping. And also the parking guy, sweet man, but he will write a ticket in a heartbeat. And we talk about tourism. When you ride the bus, it's so many things. But again, I'm not born and raised here. So with the tourism part, I found a battlefield that I did not know was here by riding the bus. But because I'm not born and raised here, I don't know what's here. Riding the bus helps me see what's around. And then we talk about employment. We have people that want to work in Fredericksburg, that want to work in Stafford, that want to work in Spotsylvania, but they have no way to get there. So that goes back to accessibility. How accessible is the bus? Next slide, please. So looking at this picture, what does it tell you?
That's pretty cool.
But what does it speak to? What does it say to you?
Efficiency is on the left, not on the right.
I always say the bus is Route 1 on a Sunday afternoon, and the cars, that's everywhere Monday through Friday, and Saturday, and Saturday. It depends on what's going on. We can relieve congestion by getting people on the bus. I drive a car, and now that gas is 2 children and a husband, I need to be on the bus getting to where I gotta go. And luckily, I do have a bus stop near me, but there's a reason why I can't catch the bus, like you said. I have to go to the Geico, catch the bus. If you're not a Geico employee, you cannot park at their parking lot. So hence, I have no choice but to drive. But I'd rather just jump on a bus. And coming from a system like SEPTA, which is Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority, a bus comes every 5 minutes. We're jumping, but they also have a larger infrastructure and they also got tons of money. Next slide, please. So, saying all that, I go out to the public literally on a daily basis. I will talk to any and everybody that will listen. Ask my supervisor, ask Stacy.
Sure.
I will go anywhere and be on any soapbox to talk to people about be it congestion, transportation, catching the bus. Here is what the people want. They want the route reevaluated and route structure. They want accessibility. They want surveys based on the people that have no accessibility to transportation. A lot of people I've talked to felt that a lot of the surveys is based on people that have cars or have bus stops near them. They want to make use of, they want to make transportation for people who drive. They want people to, like Ms. Lee said, drop your keys and take the bus. They want reevaluation of demographic needs based on today's demographics. The people that I've spoken with, they're tired of hearing about forward plans, 5-year plans, 10 years plans. They want to know what's happening right now. How can I get to work right now? How can I get to the grocery store right now? In 10 years, they might not even live in this area, but we need to make it accessible and do it for the people that live here now. Mandatory use of public transportation by all decision makers before they allow to hold any position on any transportation committee or board. They want to know, do you feel them? Are you understanding and feeling what they're going through? Board and committee members to be more visible in the community where transportation needs are not being met. This came from a gentleman in King George County. He wants to know who represents him. I had to remind him I don't. But I listened to him because I understand his point. I understand his plight. And the ability to have a voice in these meetings for those who are technologically challenged. I spend a lot of time showing people how to use Route Shop 2.0. If you do not know what Route Shop 2.0 is, that is Fred Transit's app that shows you when the bus is coming, the time, where you can watch the bus on the route. But a lot of our older population either don't have a smartphone or a tablet, or they don't know what an app was. I had a gentleman thought that an app meant a snack.
Is that like
No, it's not like Facebook. But it's almost there. And Google Maps. I spend time teaching technology on my seniors.
I have one more thing to offer to that.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Jane Leeds. Reliability is a big factor in riding the bus. If the bus breaks down 3 times in 1 month and you're late to work, if you're an hourly employee, you lose money. I've had that happen to me many, many occasions, more than I care to talk about, but that is a factor.
It is. And that's
if you don't have reliable, affordable, safe, accessible, all of those things.
Yes, and
to make it a value.
Yes, ma'am. That falls under operational structure. So operational structure, and I have an operational transportation safety background. Operational structure is what are the steps? If a bus breaks down, what are the steps that the transit company takes to make that bus go back on track at a reasonable time? That's not something that we as FAMPO or CTAC members are a part of. That is definitely strictly transportation and their operation. In a perfect world, bus break down, another one will be there in 10 minutes. They get the people on the bus, everybody's happy, everybody's on his way. I worked for Fairfax Connector and I also worked at Hampton Roads Transit, and I came from Bay Transit in Gloucester. So I do have an extensive background on operations and safety. That's a perfect world. But I was also there when a bus broke down on Route 64, and during traffic, during rush hour, couldn't get the people in town. So the bus actually was almost 2 hours behind schedule. So we talk about adherences, we talk about dead runs. And I don't want to use a lot of jargon, but that's what the people experience when a bus breaks down. I have not had that experience of being on a Fred Transit bus when it breaks down. And hopefully I will not have that experience because I have anxiety. So this is what, and I say we, because we are consumers of the bus, changes without being heard. They see the changes, they hear the changes, they were like, well, what about what I need? Future plans without meeting today's needs. Again, that was always been told to me, like, well, they're talking about 5 or 10 years out. What about today? Not knowing who represents them at meetings. A lot of people in the community don't know what CTAC is, or the anagrams or anything like that, FAMPO or anything like that. Use of terminology that is not explained to them. Stacey can tell you I'm always asking her for a definition because I don't know. I'm new to this and I have no problem, no shame in asking a million and one questions so I get clarity. Because if I'm going to represent you, I need to know what I'm doing. Low public comment due to accessibility to technology. Again, teaching someone who has a hearing impairment, sight impairment, physical impairment, how to use a smartphone is difficult. The longest it's taken me to teach somebody how to use Rough Shot was an hour and a half because they did not understand tapping the app, tapping the phone. We don't have flip phones. I'm saying that, but there are flip phones now. The old flip phones, the old Blackberries, it wouldn't work. Oh, I just dated myself. But those things are not, it's challenging for someone who has not grown with that. I'm at the age where I remember rotary phones on the wall. So having a smartphone is like, ooh, this is magic, you know? So again, this is the problem that the real community, and I'm calling the real community, these are the people that actually live in the community and talk to me all the time. Next one, please. So now we're gonna talk about transportation equity and equitable transportation. Does everybody understand those terms? Yes, no? So transportation equity means transportation is safe, reliable, transfer for everybody, no matter the demographic, no matter what, they have perfect transportation. Equitable transportation means every person is a stakeholder in the transportation structure. Do you believe that you're a stakeholder? Next slide, please.
Yes, I am.
So we talk about accessibility and equity. If you make it accessible for one group of people, you make it accessible for everybody. And I think this is where we kind of a little bit fall short. We should not, let me rephrase that. It should never be political about where a sidewalk is. It should never be political about a curb cut. It should never be political about the quality of life for our community. And when we start getting into those politics, we are still neglecting the people that have a need. Next slide, please. So, going on to people with disability. People with disability contribute more to the use of public transportation than any other means of transportation. Do you know why? No, they are transit dependent. And Fred does an awesome job with transporting people. I've been on the bus watching them use the lift, but our buses don't kneel. And the deal is when the bus lowers itself on the side, so that people can walk up and make it easier. Those buses, those type of buses, which are called cutaways, they don't have that capability. Now, you may think, well, why don't they have the capability? Well, there's a cost behind hydraulics. And restructuring a whole bus, it would just take so many years to get that done, and that is a future plan thing. So again, they do well with the ramp, but people got to know that the ramp can be used at any time. All they have to do is request it and be stable enough to use the ramp. And again, that's what I educate people on when I'm out training. Next slide, please. So here's some myths and facts that when I'm out in public, some things that I hear. The myth is for low income people. It's for people that can't drive or don't have a driver's license. It's social service. It's dangerous. Only drunk and homeless people take the bus, and it doesn't go where I need to go. No offense. The facts. Anybody from any financial background can ride the bus. All you got to do is know where it's at. Many people who ride the bus have driver's licenses and can drive. I actually have a CDL. I'm proud.
Class
But,
A,
I'm sorry?
Class A.
I have a Class B with passenger endorsement because I used to teach people with language barriers on the runway how to drive buses. I have a strong background.
There's a great photograph that I hope you can get. It's on the internet. This thing about low-income people using transit.
Mhm.
You may have heard of a rock band from before my time called the Beatles.
That's for my time too.
So there's a certain guy called Sir Paul McCartney. He regularly takes public transit and they take photos of him and it's on Facebook. And you can see him, it's often trains. But the point is that guy's wealthier than probably most of us in the room. I don't know any of your personal circumstances, but I'm guessing. And he takes it all the time. So it's your point is valid that transit should be for everybody, but provided it has all the things that we need it to have, which is a whole discussion.
And another person that rides the bus that's on Facebook, and they're probably more my generation area journalists, Keanu Reeves.
I was thinking of him too.
He always rides the bus. And I remember, like I said, I grew up in Philadelphia. And now that I'm old, I'm like, oh my God. I used to take the train from Philadelphia to Delaware because I was a kid. And I never knew that the president would go on the train back and forth. And we used to take the train back and forth too, because I mean, a kid growing up in Philly, you commute, you just jumped on the Amtrak, you jumped on a commuter train, you jumped on NJT, whatever was going where the boys were, that's where we would go.
So that's just my suggestion for the next time you do the presentation.
Yes.
Stick Keanu Reeves' photo on the bus.
I am going to find Keanu because I think he's cute.
Stick Paul McCartney's photo riding the train. Stick Joe Biden. When you see that actually, when the transit works,
Yes.
when transit works properly, it's for everybody.
He's a trucker?
That's what it said.
Well, I know that he used to catch the bus back and forth. Catch the train back and forth from 30th Street Station to from the Delaware stations. And I never knew that. We was always on the train with him because that was a prime time to ride. The fact is, it's a public utility and necessity for those who do not have access to a vehicle. The Fred Transit actually has a really good safety record. Really, really good safety record. There are a wide variety of people who take the bus. Most are just at the bus stops and never get on. So you do have people that loiter and linger at the bus stops, and they are vagrants. But we have organizations here that's helping them get themselves together so they won't be there and they'll be in better places in their lives. And there is usually a bus stop within 3/4 of a mile from a person, but sometimes they don't know that. And you can always call me and I can tell you where the closest bus stop is without having to walk.
You sure you want to make that promise? Because
I do it all the time. Next slide, please. So this is what we need to do, and not just as an organization, just as people that live in the community that want to help other people in the community. We need to do more community outreach. I go everywhere that I can. The reason why I got the information from Caroline County, because I went to places where there is no transportation. I'm always curious about how people get around. I've been to King George County. I've been out to places in Spotsylvania, where one lady asked me, how come the bus doesn't go to the battlefield? I was like, I don't even know what the battlefield is until she told me. And I was like, yeah, we need a bus come out the Battlefield Country Store on a regular basis. But again, just getting out there and talking to people and understanding their needs and understanding what we can do to help them as committee, as organization, just as person in our community, that's very vital. Real time and life experiences. I know a lot of you have heard me say we have to start making informed decisions. We need to get on the buses and start talking to the people. We need to go to the bus stops and start talking to the people. We need to go anywhere where there's a soapbox and start talking to the people. I've travel trained Stafford, I've travel trained Fredericksburg. I haven't done Spotsylvania yet, but anybody that wants a travel training program, I will go get them and we will ride the bus. I don't care where they are. If they have a transportation barrier, I still go out and travel train them to tell them now that you got this travel training information, now let's go to our local officials and say, hey, why we can't do this? Open and candid conversations to the community. This is great, we talk amongst us here, but if we don't take this conversation to the community, they still don't know what we're doing. And surveys that include a whole community with emphasis on those with varied needs. A young lady asked me about this because she said, I have a need, but it's never on the survey. She wanted to know how to fold up a stroller to get on the bus. Now, that might not mean a lot to anybody, but when you're a single parent trying to get to work and you got to get that stroller on the bus, so you can drop your kid off at the babysitter so you can get to work, it's a necessity. You now become transit dependent. So, question that's not on here is, where do we fit in on Justice 40?
What was the question? Justice 40.
Yes, where do we fit in on Justice 40?
Justice 40.
Justice 40.
40. Must be a proposition somewhere.
Justice 40 is about transportation equity. And they just had a meeting yesterday. It was amazing what they asked the public. And it came from not just the public, but stakeholders, people in transportation. We need to be a part of that. And if Matt can, I'll give you the link to put in the chat so people can really get onto it. And I don't know how to get it out to people.
Yeah, Tamara's talking about the executive order, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the executive order from President Biden that says the goal is now to spend 40% of federal funds on underserved populations. So we're talking minority and low income, traditionally underserved and left behind populations. They are trickling down through the system. Of course, we're going to have federal departments and agencies eventually give FAMPO and MPO guidance on what we have to do. But I'm very glad you brought that up because that really needs to be on everybody's radar.
And if we start now, we'll be ahead of it. It's just like when SMS came out. Everybody was behind, but now a lot of transit companies say now you have to have an SMS manager. SMS is safety management systems for transit. You got to be certified to be on there to say, hey, I'm making these managers accountable for the safety of the people that ride the bus. I am certified as an SMS agent. I call it agent, but I'm certified as SMS because that is important. When people catch the bus, they want to feel safe. And people need to be held accountable for those things. So I will definitely make sure that I get that to Matt. And the other one was the transportation.gov equity, VAtransitequity.com. They have the video on there that talks about transit equity and why it's so important for our community. Next slide. So let's have the discussion. What would you like to ask me or what would you like to bring up? Yes, sir.
I'd like to, without saying a name, but I think somebody should be on the MT focus group. You filled in the blank there. Now, going back to Title VI, Stacy, we get the FAMPO and its organizational transportation requirements and planning and activities all get evaluated by from the federal government on whether we're compliant and convenient. And we have gotten good grades on that in our past. And I don't know how often they do it, but Title VI talks to that exact issue, that area. So for the new people on board.
I have a little secret to tell you all. The DRPT has recommended funding for Fred Transit to go fare free, but only beginning on, I think it's the 1st of July 2023. I don't know why not the 1st of July 2022, but anyway, the information I've got whispered in my ear by little birdie is that they recommended it. So if the CTB votes the budget through, Fred Bus will be able to offer a free service from the 1st of July 2023. I hope the date is correct, but that's the information I was told. So it appears that more will be done to assist folks who can't afford transportation in this region from that year on. I don't know if it's I think it could be a 3-year program. So it'll be funded for 3 years, starting on that date, 1st of July 2023.
And that's great. They're going.
Not public knowledge. Right. I just have been told.
And that's wonderful that they can go fare free, but that doesn't solve the accessibility problem.
Sure.
Catching the bus for free is great. I mean, I catch a circulator when I go to DC and that's free, but I have to get to it. And the program that I'm with, again, it's a travel training program through Healthy Generations Area Agency on Aging, which I go out and teach people how to ride the bus. And you may be thinking, well, all you gotta do is just go, put your money in and go. There's a lot you have to learn in riding the bus, like personal safety, bus safety, station safety, learning how to use Route 2.0 or how to navigate through Google Maps on how to use it. It's a lot, but we got to give the people what they need, not necessarily what they want, but what they need. People want every 10-minute service. They want to come out to their house, but what they need is viable transportation. So how do we give it to them? What do we do to get the people with no transportation to the store, to the doctor's office? Not saying keeping them out of mobility options, but keeping them out of mobility options. You know, we have to think this way. At some point in time, we're all going to be transit dependent. If we fix the problem now, by the time we need to be transit dependent, it won't even be an issue.
Tamara, I have a question.
Yes.
Jane Lead. Have we investigated other places throughout the country or even close by how they handle these issues?
Well, I have a great transportation network of people all over the country. And right now, their biggest issue is getting drivers. That has been the major thing. I have colleagues in Saginaw, Michigan with Stars Transit, and they're not a big major issue, big major system, but they have a community buy-in that's amazing. They have local community leaders. They have state leaders that are in the buy-in. We have to work to get the people to buy in. But how can you get them to buy in if they don't utilize the service? I'm definitely all for everybody drop their keys for a week and see how they get around. But I want you to go to those areas where it's hard to get the bus to. Or you could get your car towed if you park there. Excuse me, he had to. That's right.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you if it bothers you that almost every transportation project on an LRTP is working against what you want to do. It not only steals money from transit, it encourages people to take the car.
Well, I have a solution to that.
Good.
Get the communities involved. If the community started getting involved and saying, you know, this long range transportation thingy, because that's what they're going to call it, these is great. But again, what are you doing for me now? A person that's blind can't drive. A person that has hearing, some hearing loss or everything, may not be able to drive. So these long, and no offense anybody that's on long-term range plans or anything, but they don't involve the community. That involves money. That involves things. That don't involve creating a culture of people that get on the bus so we can grow our community.
You touched on the money. You're aware that almost no funds are available for transit operating expenses. Almost all the funds that are available to these various programs are for capital expenses. So we can buy a bus, we can build a bus stop, but we got to do these squat to pay the drivers.
Because again, there's not enough of us going to Congress and saying, you know what, this bus is nice and all, but we need somebody to drive it. Now we need people to get on it.
Well, I've been harping on this for years, for decades, for that matter, ever since the 60s. You know, that dawned on me back then when I read an article that we made a screw up, a huge screw up back in the 40s and 50s when we gave up a transit-based transportation network and started using an automobile-based network. Now, what I've been hammering at ever since then is, don't do it. Let's get back to a transit-oriented network.
Yes.
That way, the money does not go against public transit. Everything that worked, everything that it goes towards is all the goals that you just stated, and some goals that you didn't state, like building communities that are walkable.
I believe in those. Our walkability score here is very low.
So basically, I'm talking about using transit as a tool to work towards walkable communities, we're talking about in transit on top of the network that we got. And I say you can't do it both ways.
And I say you can, because we've never tried it. We have to, and I digress, but I'm going to make my point. If everybody in here commits to taking the bus 2 days a week, that increases ridership. DRPT and these other places, they're gonna look at it like, why is there ridership increasing? We have to do something. There's grants, there's 5307, 5310, 5311, 53, whatever. All that money is sitting there, and we, our taxpayer dollars and money, don't tell them this is where we want our money to go. We're letting people who do not use public transportation, we're letting people who drive, not in our area, dictate to a community how they want us to move about the community. I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you were talking about connecting with some of the business community, you'd like to see the Chamber of Commerce come in and become a partnership, that I think of connecting some of that, the involvement of the community, the voices of people who are saying, I live up in northern part of the district, or, you know, in the community, and I would love to get down to Fredericksburg to shop, to go to the restaurants, and simply can't, because I know I'm gonna get stuck with in an hour and a half coming down just to go to dinner. There's no options in northern part of Stafford at all. There's nothing for the kids to do. There's nothing like that. So there is a piece that we can connect, and I love that idea that to bring the chamber in. That is, I think, a great conduit to connect that. I have kind of this vision of an express route that could be, you know, tossed around for and ridership. I think a lot of people, a lot of families would utilize a bus route when you start to say this is an opportunity for you to come into Fredericksburg, come into shopping into Central Park, or, you know, those points where they could come in and have dinner, see a movie, go do some of that entertainment in the area, and they could know that they'd have a reliable way to get into it without being stuck in their individual cars like your you know, your graphic showed.
The biggest thing is, again, we go back to the communities. Again, I have no problem going to anybody and saying, look, this is what we need, and I'll keep coming back to you until we get it. Mm-hmm. Even if I'm the only one. Now, I don't mind being a loud voice. If we don't have a community buy-in, we're not gonna have a local government buy-in.
Yeah, it starts because you start connecting the dots and saying, this is where the problem is. I would love to get into from A to B if I could. This is what we want. They want to have those opportunities, especially I think up in the Quiet Garrisonville area. They would love to come down to Fredericksburg and utilize all those opportunities, the battlefields, the great restaurants they have downtown or Central Park, the movie theaters. They don't have it. So they just start connecting the dots, and what the feedback we're getting from those surveys, from, you know, that we're getting from public comments, that sort of thing, and bringing in the chamber to say, we've got the business community over here. They'd love to make it, bring them together.
Yes,
and start making it a solutions.
And yes, and I still go back to the communities. These are public meetings. Where are the people? They can't get here. We're holding meetings where they can't get here, or the bus does not get here. So it's up to us to go out and get these community comments and bring them back and say, this is what the people want. If you want us to elect you back, you need to give us what we want, because our vote counts, our vote matters. But if we can't get to the polls, think of it this way: how many people could not vote because they could not get to the polls? How many people are right now going hungry because they can't get to the grocery store because they get off the work at 5 o'clock? They can't get to the store and get back in enough time. These are the people that we need to go out. These are the people, well, these are the people that I represent. I gotta speak for me. These are people that I represent.
I would make a quick comment. From a systems perspective, excuse me, I'll take this time. Josh talk. From a systems perspective, what Tara and Rupert and you are saying are all the same thing. You need more people to ride. Those people need to have a transit option to get to where they want to go, when they want to go, where they, on their schedule, and that will produce more community participation, which will produce more political participation, which will produce more funding for that transit connection. So that loop has to get started somewhere. You could start it with all of us and each of us and our 3 friends go on the bus and do that and show it. That's one way to do it. But you can attack all of those points at the same time. You can do all those things together. You can create these transit links. You can increase, word of mouth, all those things together. So you're really all just talking about the same problem. That's all I wanted to say.
But it's solvable.
One of the recent changes is that on the, I think, 18th of October, Fred introduced an hour earlier service. The goal is to try and help people getting to work in the morning, because when the buses only turn on the key at 8 o'clock, some people already have to be at work. And a lot of people, by the time the bus gets to them, it's too late to get to the office. We will see now in the next 3 months whether this is successful, whether people actually do jump on that bus and use it to get to work or not. So the first 2 weeks, I think there are 150 people. That's 150 people, but it should be more. We'll see if it's effective. Just remember, when you want to fund local transit, because of the way the system is currently, there's a local match. In other words, your local county and the city have to contribute a portion of the operating expenses. And so if the local politicians vote no to spending money on that local match, that route eventually gets pulled because there's not enough money to fund it. So just remember, some money comes federally, some money comes from the fare box, from people paying their contribution, some money comes from the local jurisdiction. And so the reason, for example, today that we don't have any transit in King George County and Caroline County is because the local county leadership, political leadership, pulled the funding and shut it down. So just remember that that is part of the equation, is that you have to convince the local counties and the city to fund that. What we heard just now is the operating expenses, because the fare box nowhere in the world covers the full operating cost of the bus system. There isn't a single example. Those people who tell you they found one, you'll find out when you do further investigation that there are hidden subsidies that they're just not telling you about. The classic case is Singapore. Singapore claims that their train system is profitable, but when you scratch the veneer off, you discover that the operator got all of the infrastructure brand new and all for free, and everything is subsidized by the state except the driver's salary. So
It's a great system.
So actually, it's not profitable. They've just hidden the subsidies. There is not, and I stand by this, there is not an example in the world of a bus or a train system which is profitable. And that's because of a simple thing. Politicians, and I was one for 14 years, want to set the fare prices and keep them fairly low, historically, going back 100 years. And the minute you say, we don't want the fare price to be high, and there are good reasons to keep the fare price low because they're poor communities, the minute you do that, you can't have a profitable system. And because it's common across the entire planet that people have voted for 100 years to keep the fare prices lower than the cost of running the system, those same politicians need to vote for the shortfall to make that difference. And they tend not to want to do that sometimes. So that's why transit infrastructure falls apart, because people are gung-ho to vote for keeping the fares low to serve the community, but they're a lot less gung-ho voting for the tax money to make up the difference. And that's the whole last 100 years of transit history in one simple illustration.
Building at naval con is really like chicken and egg.
It is a chicken and egg. It's definitely a chicken and egg. It's true. You build another highway lane, they will come.
Just an observation, just based on my experience here, using multimode transportation. I've done the bus. The only one I really haven't done a lot of is the train to get to work, to and from work. But a lot of bus time, a lot of slug line over the years. One of the problems I see, and this may be just my perception and it could be wrong, is getting your vehicle, leaving your house, because the bus is not going to come to your house. So you have to take at least two modes of transportation to get anywhere. It's parking at train stations, parking at probably areas where you could pick up the Fred, parking to where you pick up a bus. Go ahead.
It's also not living within walking distance.
No, it's not within walking distance. That's an impediment that, is longer range to fix. But my problem is if I want to take the train, and I've done this, I've taken Metro out of Woodbridge. I do know that parking at Woodbridge, let's say 5 to 10 years ago, was pretty secure. In other words, you could go late in the day, leave your car in that high-rise parking area. It's not high-rise, it's 4 levels or whatever. Get on the Metro, go see a Nationals game or whatever you're going to do. Come back and your car would still be there in one piece. And there is some patrolling. I don't know how much because I've never really seen the Prince William County Police there, but I know that they do patrol, just like Stafford patrols the commuter lots. But that's another issue that I see is inadequate parking at other modes of transportation. So that you don't have confidence you're going to find a place to park. It's kind of like coming to CTAC meetings. But I've consistently parked in this train parking or commuter parking out here because that cuts off at about 6 o'clock or so, 6 or 7. There are no more commuters. But you can park there. You're allowed to park there. But still, if I had to park out in the what we call the Ville in the Marine Corps, I would be kind of concerned about my vehicle, the security of it, somebody breaking into it. So that's a piece, and I don't know if that's something that is within your realm, but certainly security is an increased awareness for security right now as we live in this moment. And it's not going to get better from what I see.
And agreed, the parking situation is not the greatest situation. However, what can cure that? Public transportation. All we have to do, and I'm saying all we have to do is a perfect world. Change the way the buses are running, change the way the routes are run. I know when I go home, and I haven't been home in a long time, and I'm from Philadelphia. My sister lives near an area called 69th Street. That's not the best area, but it's a good area, not the best. I park my car from her house. I walk down and catch the trolley when I have to go back and forth into the city. And where she lives at is pretty rural. It has a trolley system. So I can do that. But if the trolley wasn't there, I would have to walk from her house to, again, 69th Street where the big terminal is. And it's about maybe a 10-minute walk. But if you're accustomed to walking that, and in the city, you walk everywhere, but this is not an area where that happens. So what we have to do is now fix the transit system or make suggestions on how to make the transit system better. So you won't have to park your car in areas that you can actually just go, walk a block or two, or no more than less than however you're able to walk, catch the bus, and then be a commuter service.
But I think if you look at the demographics of the population that we're talking about, those who are, that perception of those who are poor, they tend to live in more rural communities because affordability to get more intensely populated areas is higher. So it's an unfortunate, situation. It was like live where you can have walkability is much more expensive. The farther out you get, more in rural communities, it's much more, they can afford a place to live for their family. It's going to be a lot tougher. That's the conundrum we're in.
That's because there's no, and if this offends anybody, it's not to be offensive. There's no money in poor people. So we're not going to build the infrastructures there. What we're going to do is allow these companies come in, build these housing and these apartments that really nobody can afford. And we're going to leave the poor and disabled, and we're gonna leave them where they are because we want people to move into our new high rise so we can make money. There's no money in poor people. I am one of those poor people. I work part-time. I don't make a lot of money. I'm a caretaker.
There are policies that, I know it's very late, so I
Oh,
won't,
sorry.
I won't speak long, but there are policies that you can put in place to ameliorate that. You can put set asides that a certain percentage of a massive new development has to be reserved for affordable housing or whatever terminology.
And I'm gonna speak on that.
So-
It's not.
So there are policy tools, but people have to implement them, right? And
Yeah, it's a little more complicated than that, though. It has to do with proffers and what the state has allowed localities to collect. And so, yes, it is an option, but it's much more complicated than that. And I think that will be something that, as we continue the discussions, we'll look at that as options. I don't mean to cut anybody
Oh,
off,
you're fine.
but I want to get you off before the clock changes.
Yeah.
Any other questions on Tamara's presentation?
Phenomenal.
You're being highly recommended for one of the focus.
Yeah, great, what you did.
No, thank you. But
So
Really good.
we're not going to let peer pressure say you're it, but if you are interested, please let me know. Any other questions? Can we have the cliff notes on the congestion management issue?
Again, I'll make it 1 minute. On our CNP webpage, we have our performance monitoring program that we have recently started up and updating. You'll find a web application that's used on your desktop, laptop, computer, in Chrome. You can view congestion data for April through June, July through September. We'll be updating this for October through January, something like that for next year. View the data for our CNP roadways. Our congestion management process was updated in 2019. We're looking to also update that again in the future. So you can view congestion on roadways, for instance, Route 3, the average speed on the weekdays along all sections of Route 3 in the Tampa region, weekends, same thing for all roadways. So you can let us know if you have any questions on that, or let you know this resource to look at. Some of our data is available for use.
the one point I just want to add to Matthew, just one sentence. We tell you this because we're also required by law to inform you that we do monitor this congestion. That's where you find it.
I had no doubt that you did. Okay. But the tool available to us as we do our discussions and our focus group discussions. Okay? Any questions for me? Okay, any member of the public present or online wish to make a comment? Anybody online wish to make a comment? Hearing none, I'll close the public comments. The correspondent, item 10, that was covered previously. The 3 written comments will be addressed in a letter signed by me to Caroline County, CC Mr. Fowler. Okay, staff reports.
We kind of touched on them earlier at the beginning of the meeting.
So yeah, we jumped it down a little bit. We told you about the changes to staff. In the meanwhile, if you will just correspond with me, I will appoint a new person who will assist your committee, but just for the next couple of weeks, just talk to me and I'll help you.
Pick on Ian, okay? Anybody have a report as a member?
Oh, Jane Lee's online did tell me, I'm sorry, she did tell me that she would like to speak during member reports.
Okay? Go ahead, please.
I'm not sure if she's still here. I don't believe she is.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, before,
Staff,
please.
like, is this the county area times? You want members reports?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, I apologize for not knowing more information about Amazon's new mega distribution center that's going in Stafford County in the South Stafford area. But I suspect that 10 years from now, the same road infrastructure will be there, just like it is at this moment. But the traffic in that region, in that area of the county, is going to increase tremendously And the wear and tear on the highway system there is going to be unbelievable. And when you talk about congestion, I think you're going to see that too. Go ahead, sir.
So VDOT has funded a study for the pipeline study in that area. Currently undergo, VHB as a consultant is doing it. They're going to bring recommendations to us within the next, I would say, 3 months. We have Matthew over there has put a project in our smart scale application already, which you might or might not have seen. At the moment, it just is a line item. It just says Centerport something project. When that study gives us the recommendations, that we must add another lane, or we must put a bus here, or whatever it is we need to do, going in to this round of smart scale applications. So people are already working on the problem.
Very good.
I'm not sure that it'll produce the right result, but anyway, the process is already on the go. We can see what the recommendations are.
Has that been brought up at the policy committee yet? Do you know?
Yes.
Hank, it has?
Yes, because they have to approve that list of projects, and it's already approved, subject to the detail.
Okay.
We put a placeholder for the
Okay.
Centerport Parkway project, and we're waiting to get the detail of what exactly it is they want us to fund there.
Quick vignette. The airport was thrilled that they didn't put houses there, because that would have been under the flight path. Point one. Point two, by Stafford County's own estimate, every house costs $160,000 in services, which no way, I've never seen a board require anything like that in a proffer. Now, yes, it has a major transportation impact, and there's a lot of history behind that, but I'm glad somebody's addressing it.
Yeah.
What you both expressed tonight, before I ask for any other comments, is there's a lot of moving parts to this stuff. And I really beg you, we've got to get wired and organized. Whether it's, we're not going to get buses to everybody, but we need to start getting buses to populations. We're not going to get walkability all over the place, although I'd like to see Stafford Town Center built. But if we don't get ourselves organized, we will diffuse our effort and not make the impact that I firmly believe we can. Having just preached from a pulpit, are there any other questions, comments? Please.
Just one quick. There's a new split in 95 South between Route 630 and Route 17. And if you're just driving defensively in traffic, which...
You're talking about the through or the...
Yes.
Local.
If you happen to be over in the left lane, which the migration is, as we know, everybody's been driving 95, most everybody. The migration is left for vehicles. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I got in that left lane without realizing it, and all of a sudden the sign was there with the 3 arrows going to the left and 2 or 3 arrows going to the right. And I had a meeting with someone in the 17 area, Route 17. I completely missed it because I took the new bridge south to Massaponax, whether I wanted to or not.
I've done that twice.
Yes, thank God. I've only done it once.
You're replicating the Springfield interchange example.
Yes, I was there for that. But this one is worse. And the traffic has picked up. Granted, today it was heavier than normal. But I almost did it again today. And I had to fight to get over. I was not in the left lane. I was in the next one to the left. But I got over and I got off. But then you're faced with barrels all of a sudden as you get off to get on Route 3.
Nice.
And it goes from 2 lanes down to 1 barrels. And there's a sign there, one sign, I think, that says you're gonna lose your lane. But I'm telling you, there were some near misses on barrels today in front of me. And I was lucky that I saw that so I could move over. But I'm gonna check into that because I'd like to know what the accident data is already on that split in the highway and people trying to maneuver to get where they thought they were going to go, but ended up in Massaponax when they didn't want to. So, I felt really stupid when I got off at Massaponax, but yeah, I should have saw it coming.
I felt really stupid getting on the Beltway when I was trying to go north.
Yeah. But I just wanted to bring that up for your awareness, if you're driving up that way and come south on 95. But I'm going to check with the state police to see what the accident data is going on there, because I don't see a lot of patrol cars around that area. Now, I may just not see them. There was an accident on the right side today, and it was just near that area, but I don't think that was the cause. Anyhow, I thought I'd bring that up. It's Stafford County and.
Thank you. Any other memo reports?
I'm sorry, being late all the time. I work at Belbar. It's hard for me to get down here. You guys always have these on days where I have outages. I'm an engineer, so I can't just leave. Today, I just said I'm going to leave. You guys do with it, so I apologize. But my name's Dustin Savage. I've been an at-large member for a while.
Yeah.
Sorry for not showing. The last time I was on the road, I actually had COVID, so I'm fine now.
Okay. Any other member reports? Do not wait, please, until the Monday after Thanksgiving to provide your feedback. Give it some thought. Next few days, start the process. I would like to come to closure so we can get on with more important things at our next meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Dave
A
Swan.
second. Tamara seconds.
I second. Right.
All right. Anybody opposes is dead meat. Anybody? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?